Greetings, flesh creatures. It is I, Megatron. On behalf of TFYLP, I want to congratulate you for listening to the most refined collective podcast on this miserable little planet Earth. Yes. Here you'll find knowledgeable fans discussing every aspect of Transformers and beyond. Now, enjoy the show while I continue my path to complete conquest of all of you miserable biological entities. Predacons, terrorize!
I had to write that old one.
Hi, welcome to TFYLP, episode 455. We are live tonight. It is Monday, November 8th. I'm Lucas. I'm joined tonight by Rob. And Paul. And Christian.
What up,
And
weirdos?
Phil.
Yeah, Rob and Paul just are going to sit there without talking the entire time. We're just going
There you
to
go.
sit and look at their
Hopefully
pretty
mics are
faces.
working here.
Oh wait, did y'all not hear me?
No.
No.
Oh, I must
So
have.
you both were just being silent. It's super weird.
Paul, you're still
The first
silent.
one to speak was me.
No, Paul's
I'm
doing
not
it
muted.
intentionally
I'm
now.
just. Okay.
I'm just
No.
not talking.
I said ah, and then went back to clicking stuff. But
Cool.
So tonight we are doing a show where we're talking about whether or not we want animation accuracy from our figures, or if we want unique designs, which would be perfect for Anna to join. But unfortunately, she could not join us tonight. So maybe she will show up in the chat and let us know her thoughts. I'm not sure which way she will lean. So
Woo.
You're not?
Mysteries.
Yeah.
Did you not just spend like 32 hours in a car with her?
Yeah. we did. We drove from Kansas City to TFCon in Baltimore. So yes, we got to spend lots of time in the car together.
A
So
lot of time.
it was wonderful. So
Anna said she is in the chat. She's going to be
There you
our
go.
Transformers spell check.
there you go. So yeah. And then I do want to mention, so next week we're going to go ahead and do a Cyberverse show. So apparently I'm locking myself in that I actually have to watch this show now. The season 4 is coming out, and there was a movie, right, to kick it off.
Yeah, so they have the first of the, I think, 2 movies of season 4 is on YouTube through the Transformers official channel. So it's a 45-minute long episode that I watched last night, and it's if you like the other Cyberverse stuff, you'll like this. If you didn't like the other Cyberverse stuff, you won't like it.
Jeez, it's like 9 normal Cyberverse episodes long.
Yeah, hence the movie sort of aspect to it.
Phil,
Wow.
did it give you a boner?
There were moments where I was like, that's some fun stuff.
Felt it. You got a tingle
Yeah.
in your
I now
It-
need a Little
it
Arms
moved.
toy. I
It
need a Little
moved.
Arms toy. Shout out to Little Arms.
shout out to Seinfeld.
It's like that lightsaber in the Hoth that goes jiggle, jiggle, jiggle. And you use the Force.
So I couldn't get through season 1, and so I'm hoping maybe if I just start with season 2, is that the best way to go, Phil?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's some stuff in season 1 that, I don't know. Season 1, like, tells you who some of the characters are, because they do have new characters in the show. In season 1, if you just kind of muscle through it, like season 2 is where it's like, oh, things are getting interesting now, and I don't know, it's still more kid focused, but
It's
it's
a show
like-
for children. You'll be fine.
Yeah. Well, yeah, to Rob's point, even if you just start at season 2, you'll be fine.
Okay.
Yeah, because even season 2 kind of starts off not. It's sort of where the first season ended, but it's like they did sort of a skip a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think season 1's worth watching. Yeah, it is a little bit of a slog. That's the only season I've watched, but there's some world building in it that I think is worth,
Catherine
seeing.
in the chat also says just skip to season 2.
And Enos also says, shout out to Tiny Arm action figure.
Now, isn't like Tarn in this in the show now or something?
So he's in the very end of season 3, and they showed him in the trailer for these movies, but what I can't figure out is that actually stuff for the second movie, or are those just shots used from the end of season 3? And I haven't seen the end of season 3 recently enough to remember if that's it exactly, because the Tarn stuff has nothing to do with the first movie. The first movie has everything to do with what's coming out now on the shelves for the Cyberverse toy line.
And as far as I know, it's not actually Tarn. It's just like a character model.
Right. Yeah.
For
it's
a
I don't even know if they
something.
give it a name. It's like this alternate dimension, extra evil Megatron's foot soldier are like a bunch of Tarns, and they just like teleport in and look badass. Yeah.
Sure.
So he's not leading a hit squad with a list of Decepticons to murder.
No, he's Megatron's. He's a Viacon. He's the equivalent of a Viacon.
So should we move on to our actual topic instead of next week's topic?
Cyberverse stuff was next week.
Sorry, I just wanted to give a preview and whatnot, so that way if people wanted to prepare, like me, and watch the show. So, is it at least better than the Netflix show?
The first 30 seconds shows you the ultimate difference
Christian.
between those two shows. There's laughter. They actually laugh in the show, which is something they never did in the Netflix show. It's just different. It's just like some people will watch Cyberverse and not like it. I'm a fan.
Cool.
One last, if you're telling people to go watch it, where can you watch it?
YouTube, the official Transformers YouTube page has the 45-minute episode. I think it has all the episodes, honestly.
Yeah, I meant the whole first 3 seasons. You could probably
season
watch
1 and 2 is on Netflix in the United States, but I think season 3 and the movie are on YouTube.
I thought these movies were supposed to be on Netflix, or are they just not available yet?
I do not have any clue. I don't know why season 3 isn't on Netflix yet. It's sort of weird. Transformers and Netflix are weird. Like they'll just have like the RID they don't have all the seasons of RID on there. At least they didn't. The Prime on Netflix. I think maybe they might have added the later seasons, but for a while it was just season 1. So yeah, I don't know what the deal is. But then of course they have their own Netflix Transformers show, so they've got all that. So I don't know. It's haphazard.
Fair enough. So anyway, on to our actual topic tonight. So, Paul, you had something? You look like you're about ready to talk. Fair enough.
I think there's actually, and this is going to piss off Anna so much. Well, we all definitely have opinions on an individual level. You have opinions. I think there's actually a correct answer to this. I think there's a definite wrong answer.
Yes?
What's the
correct answer
right
is
answer?
Obviously looking like the cartoon.
Yeah.
That's what the line does.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Like
Whatever it is.
The comic, whatever.
It's accuracy to fiction, 100%. Now if you make a toy that has no fiction, or a Prime that doesn't look like anything, and later you make fiction for it, then people will probably then care more about those toys that you had because now they have more actual character to them. But I mean, just look at the toy line, and maybe some of this is late stage Transformerism for all of us, where we've all got huge collections, and so it's all like, well, I got to narrow it down. I want the thing that hits the nostalgia the most or represents the thing I love the most, which is more times than not going to be the fiction. And just look what the line does. How many times have you guys been like, oh, that figure was great, now this one is a little more accurate, and you chuck it. And that doesn't matter if you're Masterpiece or Chug. Like, that affects both of us, across both lines or all segments of the community. When that better looking Prime comes out, chuck it.
Rob, my question for you is because I know you also love the Beast boxes and some of this other stuff. So like, what attracts you? Because there's no fiction for that, as far as I know. So like, what attracts you to those? Like, but not
same as Rock Lords and
shit.
cassettes. Simple, basic shapes. Because I'm a child.
Fair enough.
That's 100% what it is. Yeah. Unsurprised, Catherine says I'm wrong, and I'm not, because look at the market. Look what it does. All the toys go that way. Again, individual level, of course, there's opinions, but there's obviously, if you want to make money, there's a direction you go, and it's animation accurate or fiction accurate, whatever that fiction is.
I think that in general the market is all, like, for everything is going upscale. And so I think that that's the move is whether or not it's a unique take, or it's animation accurate. I don't think that, like, having figures that, like, aren't well painted, that aren't articulated and whatever, like, that's just not going to play nowadays. So I think that that's the main thing, but I do think it seems like there's a bifurcation between, the masterpiece toys or, whatever it may be versus, the unique takes and whatnot. But both, like, everything that's getting produced nowadays, I feel like is really nice, just because Hasbro upped their game, and, like, you just can't compete, at that bottom end if you're not making a nice toy.
No, and I feel like this answer would have been a lot different, like pre the Bay movie explosion. Both on screen and in the toy aisles. Because if we think back to the way, because what did we get at that time? It was classics, which were reimaginings of the G1 characters, and we all lost our shit over it. It was the best stuff ever. We didn't care that it didn't look like the screen as much, because beforehand, like, oh, you wanted a Wheeljack? Well, you're using like an Armada toy, that just had a name slapped on it, or whatever that toy is, because Christian's making weird eyes, so I probably screwed up one of them. But
Energon Downshift.
Yeah. But it was a lot of that. Like, we were subbing stuff that was way off, like, as far as, but it was just like, oh, I'm going to use the Energon Inferno because it's an Inferno and he's red, and I guess that'll have, yay,
there
Inferno.
Was a lot of that going on. I've forgotten those days, but yeah.
It seems, that stuff seems foolish to me now, because like those are different characters, completely different characters, and we just didn't have. Everyone was still chasing that dragon of the cartoon accurate G1 thing, which now you can get that with Masterpieces. In a way, it's just a retro line. It's all retro stuff until they start making, more modern toys in that line that are screen accurate to the time. It's still going to be that retro thing. And, I agree with you, Rob, that there is an answer to this, but I think it goes beyond just the screen accuracy thing. Like, the designs that Floro Deary made are superior to the toys we got. They always were. You ever seen those Ladybird books, or even the packaging art on the back of the boxes? Obviously, you've seen those, but like, when they did make them look toy accurate, like, this stuff, I remember even as a kid, I was like, that is stupid. Like, that looks so dumb. Like,
yes, go
Optimus
play
Prime with the
sled, Ratchet, and Ironhide.
Yeah, like, they
those are the worst. But
those are the worst examples. Yes, I picked out the worst one.
But like, they had Optimus Prime with like the weird, like, gap in his shoulders with the cutout in his arm. It just all looked so dumb. Like, I just still can't believe the foresight that whatever the original team had to, like, change those. And I know a lot of it had to do with just making it simple enough to animate, but no, they improved those designs, and we're still chasing it, and we will be forever.
They pulled characters out of those lifeless, automatons, which is
misshapen.
Yeah,
and like the GoBot
foresight or insight.
Yeah, and the GoBots did not do that enough. Didn't do well enough at that. They look a lot like the toys, and they sucked.
Well, for what it's worth, none of them were, or I shouldn't say none of them, but like a lot of them didn't look as bad as G1 Ironhide or Ratchet. most of them aren't that far off, or even just kind of clunky like a lot of the Diaclone based stuff is. Although look at the Fluoro toys, like some of them came out really well. I think like Hot Rod still came out really well. But then you look at
I think once you get away from the Diaclone microchange stuff, 86 and on, it's a little bit better.
Yeah, in general, it does get better. Those are a lot of my favorite toys. Or once they get into the gimmicks, the Headmaster, Power Master, Target Master, blah blah blah. And they don't get that far off anymore. Now it's at least it's representative. It's not just we're completely redoing it, as Paul said.
I miss the reimagining days, though. I hadn't thought about them in a long time, but we all really did go crazy for classics, and then later Universe in the first round of Generations too. I don't think anyone ever minded those, at least on the whole.
Not at the time, definitely.
Not at the time.
No, those are still cool. The problem is we never got fiction with that stuff, so it just sort of existed. And I think we will return to that at some point. I think it's going to be quite a while because they're just squeezing the sponge right now for it's just it's the retro thing. They're using the engineering that the tricks they've learned with Masterpiece, and they're downscaling it, which we've had this conversation a million times, but there's so much they can still do with that until the well runs dry.
Well, here's the question. As the well is running dry to some, there's plenty of G1 toys I can pick out that don't have anything, but they are going to run out. But at that point, do they just keep doing more and more Unicron Trilogy, Prime, and maybe even animated? There's a ton of Beast Wars and Beast Machines that haven't been touched. Do they start doing that until engineering gets to the point, and if the brand hasn't died by then, well, now it's time to do G1 again, because with all our new engineering. I wonder if they can perpetually keep it going without ever having to think of anything new.
Yes, because that's why we're getting the new Stunticons.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
and it's old timers were we just got them, but it's no, that's 6 years ago or 7 years ago.
I don't think my kid was
shit.
born yet. I don't know.
And to look back, those things look shitty now, really bad.
They looked bad then.
Yeah.
People were happy because it was better than nothing, but it was 3 toys made up a 70 toy line figure, and it was just 3 basic toys.
The thing that I think is interesting that they're doing now with Legacy is they're taking these different universes and kind of shoehorning it into the whatever you want to call it, G1 aesthetic, class, whatever the aesthetic is of the line. And so they're taking the Prime toys, and that was one of the things I wanted to kind of bring up for the show is because I'm not really sure how I feel about it. I'm not sure I like it. I think I would have rather had more animation accurate Prime toys to come back out. But I don't know that I want a bulkhead that is, whatever we're getting and whatnot. Or yes.
Keith, yes.
So the thing we just talked about, classics, reimagining of previous characters into new modern versions, that's all that's happening with Bulkhead. That is not a G1 Bulkhead. That is just it's the Bulkhead character in a new shell.
And I feel if
with a new mode and all that stuff.
I feel if we had a lot less product, a lot of us would be more interested in that. And what are most people, or not, I shouldn't say most, I have no numbers on this, but definitely, some people are oh, that's cool. It's a new idea. I kind of like that. And then others are let's obviously just a pre-tool. Isn't that, the tool, it was designed for some other character first. And now they're doing the repaint version of it first, just to do that. And a lot of people are well, it doesn't look like the way he looks in any fiction, and I'm not interested in it. It looks dumb because it doesn't look like Bulkhead to me, blah, blah, blah.
But the old Bulkhead looked exactly how it needed to. They didn't. There's no dragon to chase with Bulkhead. He's done.
So I think that's an interesting point. Is the idea of dragons to chase with some of these toys, and I think you started to get it. I talked about it in the idea of being Unicron Trilogy. Some of you guys even said before that, and Car Robots RID, that you're getting really screen accurate toys. 20 years ago, we started to get really, really good screen accurate toys. Even some of the Beast Machines were really screen accurate. Not
most
all,
of them
some.
sucked. Most of the Beast Machine toys sucked hard.
You started to get a level of screen accuracy that we hadn't seen before to that point, but definitely with Car Robots RID.
Yeah, and
So
since then, it's all been pretty good.
Right. So
Great.
so to me, the thing is with Bulkhead and RC, the thing that I think they suffer from is those were designed by toy designers with an ulterior motive, which is the idea of using that mold for different toys. And so when you get that, you're not getting something that looks like you thought it would look. It looks different, but you also don't have any fiction associated to. So let me pause and go to my kind of next point. Back to Car Robots RID. The Optimus Prime from what was it? Inferno Convoy is the Japanese name. Is that correct?
Fire Convoy.
Fire Convoy. I'm sorry, Fire Convoy.
Fire Convoy.
What do you guys think of that toy? What do you
Awesome.
guys think of that design?
Amazing.
You want to talk about a boner? Like, I had a boner for like a year when
Yeah.
that thing first came out.
But
Nobody wants to talk about a boner. It's just you, Paul. You're the only one
Sorry,
mentioning that.
sorry.
Shout out to Paul's boner.
I
No,
don't have one. I don't have one now, but I did back in
Um,
1999.
So it's one of those things is that was a reimagining of Optimus Prime, but it looked like the fiction. It looked like the animation that we had at the time. So I don't know what the toy was designed first, the animation was designed first. I don't know if it was the chicken or the egg, but it looked like what we saw on the screen. It was new. It was different, a version of Optimus Prime. I think that was that the first time that we'd gotten a new Optimus Prime and like a new alt mode and all that. And like, yeah, I think most Transformers fans gushed all over that thing, rightly so. And I think that's kind of what we're getting with this Bulkhead and RC, our reimaginings of them. The problem with this Bulkhead and RC is that instead of trying to look like one toy, they're kind of cheap looking toys. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago after in the Reveal podcast episode. And then we also talked about the idea that they're likely to be remolded for other toys. So you're not really getting a dedicated mold for Bulkhead or for RC. You're getting something that's designed to be shared. And you know, all right, you get something that looks different than what people were expecting. And anytime you get something that's like not what people were expecting, they're going to be a little bit unhappy. And then you get something that looks kind of cheap. So I think those kind of suffer for it. But I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing that Transformers takes existing characters and gives them new designs. You know, I welcome that, to be honest with you.
Well, I think the question too is that, you know, if you're a fan of Unicron trilogy or of Prime or whatever it may be, like if you want, you know, new versions of those characters, like this may be the only way you're going to get it. So I think Hasbro's kind of testing the waters, like, you know, are people okay with this? Are they okay with it being a pre-tool for some other, you know, G1 figure or whatnot? Or, like, do you have to have that absolute animation accuracy? And if you're okay with it being a retool, you're probably going to get a lot more of them.
I think different generations lend themselves to that treatment better than others. Like Unicron trilogy stuff is generally pretty blocky, which is similar to G1, generally pretty blocky. You can kind of throw them into those bodies. I mean, the Galaxy Upgrade Optimus is not as good as Cybertron Optimus Prime. Nothing ever will be. That figure's amazing, but it looks close enough. Same with, you know, the Selects Hotshot. It looks like the Cybertron Defense thing enough to evoke the original. I think when you get to stylized lines like Prime and Animated, it's harder to force those very specific designs into a G1-like aesthetic. I think that's the problem we're seeing now.
I think you can go the other direction. Like, if you give me pretty much any character in an animated style and make a toy of it, I'm going to buy it. Because I love that aesthetic. I love the Derek designs. And, you know, I'm sure probably everybody here at least knows, he's designed like a bunch more. He's drawn a ton of other stuff, you know, that never got toys or never showed up in the show. And there's a lot that showed up in the show as background characters because he's a nerd and he threw them in because it was fun. So, like, if you go the other direction, and I think there's a chance for it. But I think it's just what can we put into G1 and how can we keep expanding
and
G1?
that's one thing I think would be interesting is if they took, like, say, these Beast Wars designs that they've done over the last year, and then they just do G1, like, painted redecos of some of that stuff and reimagined of, like, you know, again, like Phil, I know you brought up too about the Starscream that's the third party one that's the Phoenix or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like that kind of stuff too. I think it'd be neat to see some of those types of things. Like, I would kind of like to see some of that personally.
We've had a couple third-party things like that. You know, we reviewed Red Bull on Microcasters last year when it came out. And what I said then is what I'll say now is it's a cool design, but I didn't need it for $100. But for $20, absolutely, I'd be into that.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of where I land is. So I think part of what brought this up was the new Predaking that's coming out. Some of you guys were showing,
toys,
King Toys Predaking. You know, some people Catherine had their version of Tantrum, the full size version of Tantrum that a bunch of us were looking at TFCon. I thought that was an awesome looking toy. If I can find that, like if that goes on some Black Friday deals, like probably won't pick that sucker up. I absolutely love those sort of slightly reimaginings on it. And I think, honestly, I feel more so that I want to see those reimaginings now that we've gotten near perfect versions of these toys. We have near perfect, you know, Hot Rods and Ultra Magnuses and Optimus Primes and Starscreams out the wazoo. So give me something that is a little bit different, that is a new sort of take on it. You know, we were getting that with the Unicron trilogy. Sometimes they executed it well. Sometimes it was meh. But like that you know, Energon Sharkticon, that thing's sweet. It's just like a little like cool like submarine boat thing that's like, all right, it doesn't look exactly like a Sharkticon, but it's like, it's cool. And I want to see some more of that.
You know, Slug Slinger. They're both twin cockpitted jets.
Yeah.
That's where it ends.
Yeah. But that Slug Slinger from you know, Energon is just freaking sweet.
Yeah. I think I'm with you if we're going to get reimaginings, I don't want them to be close. Like, I don't want another Classics and I don't want another Universe. I'd rather have another Alternators or another, you know, Cybertron or a line that has, you know, the Beast dudes that are G1 dudes. You know, that would be cool. I don't want them to be, you know, remotely close. I want them to be something new.
I mentioned this a couple weeks back when we were going over some recent reveals that, like, part of me does miss how we used to get toy lines that were just all new stuff, and some of you have to be like, but Cyberverse, it's like, those toys don't meet our standards. Let's be real here.
They don't.
You know,
they don't.
I kind of miss some of that, but if I have to be honest, I don't have room for it anymore either. And that's, I think, something that I know a lot of us, because we talk about it all the damn time, if not on the show, then in private chats too, is like, well, I got to purge again, or I got to cut down. And it's, well, if I have to pick this cool toy but has nothing at all versus this great looking rendition, again, whether you're Chug or Masterpiece or Legends, you know, whatever you like. Sorry, Paul. Sorry. Childsterpiece, Masterpiece, or Legends that you like.
Mini masterpieces, of course.
That you're going to probably pick that over the cool toy but no attachment beyond that versus the cool toy and has a bunch of attachment.
I think you can make room.
I cannot.
I know this. I know you can't, but you can make room in your heart. Anyway, but the last line I did that with was BotBots. Yeah, I tried it I came out, and I ended up going crazy for it. But I was like, okay, if I'm gonna get these, I've got to make a dedicated display space, you know, for them because they're so unique. And I did that. I'm happy with it. I'm sad that they're not come out in a year. I hope they're still coming back, but like, there's still room for that.
Well, to me, I think part of it is world building and fiction and whatnot as well. And, you know, some of these unique one-off toys are exactly that, one-offs. And it's like, well, what do you do with that? And I suppose that you can put together that Starscream Phoenix thing, and you can put together the Kang toys, and you can put together that Red Bull or whatever the thing was. but like they don't exactly go together. And I think that that's the thing that's really hard is like if you actually had a full line of, you know, some of these toys, I think that that looks a lot better than it's like, I don't have room in my collection for one-offs. Like I could have if I can have a shelf at least, I'm okay. But
that's the late stage transformerism in all of us.
yeah.
See, where me and
glad
Anna
you guys
kind of
use that term now.
It's
it's
great.
a great term.
It's a
did a good job.
awesome term. It explains everything.
I think what's funny though is the difference between our version of that term and Peter's version of that term. And Peter's version is like, oh, I just have room for everything. I just buy more room.
And
Peter doesn't believe in the phrase.
Peter's late stage transformerism is, hey, I'm going super deep into machine robo now.
Yes.
I don't even know. Can you? That's just Tuesday for Peter. I don't think.
Right.
I don't know that that's late stage or whatever. Like I think he's been pretty consistent with how he collects.
Yeah.
So Anna had a point in the chat, like to piggyback on what Christian said. So original designs need to be cheap. And I think to a certain extent, yeah, if we're gonna get something new that we haven't seen before, like bots were cheap. They're a good entry level. Like, all right, do you want to try it out? You don't have to spend a lot of money to decide if you like it or not. And if you buy 2 or 3 of them, you don't feel too put out if you didn't like it. Versus if you're gonna buy a MP scale, transformer for $100 Yeah, exactly. But I think if they did like a main line of like, all right, here we're gonna redo Beast Wars, but with like the Gen 1 characters added in and they turn into animals, like, yeah, cool. I'd be down to see that. I'd be down to see, new mainline renditions of that sort of thing and pay $22 for deluxe.
Can I clarify a few things from what I'm hearing?
No.
All right. Rob, what do you want to say?
Alternators were $20 when they came out.
Oh.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Right?
Yeah, and Binotech was $50.
Binotech was $50.
And we were like,
okay, I wasn't. I got Binotech whenever I could because it had die cast. But those were our masterpiece toys. I remember we put our Binotechs and alternators with MPO1. We're like,
and
cool.
It was designed that way.
Yeah, that didn't look like anything, but we did it because we didn't have anything else. Talking about like the one-offs and the weird stuff, like that's where if you made a Venn diagram, Anna and I overlap in that I do like my favorite word, esoteric, like esoteric shelves of just weird stuff. And like you ask Rob, where do you put that stuff? And the answer is on the top. Like a bunch of like just weird one-off crossover stuff is up there because I don't know where else to put it. And actually in my little corner shelf, there's also some of that, like got like some of the sports label stuff is up there. So I enjoy, either one-offs or very small lines, like some of that. I think that can make for interesting displays. So I don't think everything has to be this big, deep line, but I do think if you're trying to sell something new to people, I do think it's hard to do to get them to buy in when you only do 1 or 2 of something. I think they either get over it quick. The only place other than Hasbro we have as an example is third party. And how many, I don't know, I feel like there's several lines where like they will start something new. And who do they do first? They do a version like Optimus and a version like Megatron. And maybe you get a third character and then you just never see anything again. Right? It's like they've already exhausted the interest level for it. And so I just think it's one of those, again, where the market kind of determines it. And it's we're pretty picky. And then the answer as to why I think is all of it. I think it's space. I think it's nostalgia. I just think it's hard to get, like the bird Starscream and the bull sideswipe going very far.
I like them a lot. I don't $100, $150 like them, but I $20 and $30 like them.
But
I will buy them.
If they were $20 and $30, it would not be those.
Okay, so no, they're not going to produce $20 and $30 toys. I guess maybe the King Toys Legends, like you get that for 30-ish or whatever. But like most of this stuff, like in order for them to make any type of a money, they have to charge more than that. And that's the thing that's really hard is like, if you're going to do like a Moss Toys or whatnot, where, they had that skiff figure that wasn't painted and whatnot, so they could make a certain price point. And like, it just does not hold up at all, I mean, now Hasbro's done their own version of that, which is better than.
It's definitely better.
Yeah,
I say this, somebody that loves 3P. This is definitely better than the Skiff toy.
So, I mean, you're just treading too close to the Hasbro waters. I feel like if you're doing cheaper toys, you have to go like the King Toy stuff. And then what was that other company that did that like one-off that that Paul had? Not
SND Toys.
Paul. Yeah, whoever it was.
No,
I don't think it was S&D.
There was somebody had some other figure that was really nice. It wasn't King Toys. I can't remember.
Well, you've given us so much to go off on here.
Yeah,
Hey, remember the guy that has that
there,
toy?
Lucas.
Remember that toy? That one toy?
Shout out to BP.
Yeah, and then say.
Oh, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, the one that Brooklyn Paul had.
Oh, got it. Yeah, the kind of like Mad Max looking line. They're doing 4 of them, and like 2 of them make Hulk hands that go onto another figure. There's like some bikes. The bikes I think make Hulk hands, and it's like this big tractor trailer. Looks like again something out of Mad Max or something.
Yeah, there's like a wolf
Really cool.
that turns into like an attachment for the main bot.
Yes, that's the hands. There's a pair of them.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's another one that looks awesome. I really want to buy it because it looks cool, but I'm like, where the hell am I going to put it? I'm already going to chuck some stuff.
As a fandom, have we gotten so oversaturated with actual Transformer stuff that we're finally able to support third-party Transformers that aren't IP infringing?
Maybe.
I mean, there's a
possible?
desire for it, but Rob's right. Like, we don't have space.
Well, that sounds like a you problem.
It's a space
say-
and a budget thing. If I only have so much money to spend on a toy,
What?
I'm gonna. What is Christian doing?
Hardcore Christian just showed up.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's Unrustables.
It's Unrustables.
Look
Okay.
at you.
Dude, you about to spit in a mic? This is awesome. I've never seen you like
wish.
this.
Oh
No,
man.
I bring this up because it's like cold here now, but I always have this hat because I did support the Unrustables, and part of that was the lore that they were building even before the fiction never came out. And that is a whole other topic, but it was nice to see that there was another property with unique designs that they were building a world, and you were kind of part of it because they were running the contest where like if you make your own character you could be in the comic, and then it's like it's a whole world as opposed to just this design that they threw out and tried to sell with no support.
And it went
That's what was
extremely
different.
poorly, but I like to think that was just mismanagement, not actually
It was.
representative of, any of the pieces contained within.
By the way, they didn't sell this hat. I got the patch with my kit, and I made this hat because I wanted to have
I should
one.
do that with my patch.
It was great.
Dude, when's your album dropping?
Next week,
Because I want to buy it.
I think Christian and
What
Lucas
genre
both
is it?
need to do
What's your
that and
SoundCloud
like
link?
just show up to the next convention looking like some biker gang members. I mean, Lucas has got the hair and the beard now. Christian, you got the beard going on too. I mean, this is going to be like just like grandsons of anarchy. I don't know what you want to call it.
Well, I mean, Unrustables was coming out at a really interesting time at the tail end of Sons of Anarchy, which was super popular at the time. And then it's like a robot biker gang. Like, what's not to like there? Like, they probably did too many variants of the first 2 figures, and I think they could have gone really far if it had not been for the mismanagement. The creative people involved in it were fantastic.
Yeah.
Yep.
Unfortunate that things went the way it did, but yes, Paul, I think we're ready. If it has all of the elements.
Well, I'm ready for you to wear that hat 24/7.
All right.
That thing could change your whole thing, your whole life.
There you go. I like
So,
it.
I poured out last night to get food. Got some
So,
interesting looks.
Christian, may I ask what you consider being cold, temperature-wise?
Last night it was 45.
Okay.
I mean, that's a summer day in Chicago right there.
Yeah, that's
I'd mow
a
my lawn in
cool,
that
gentle
temp.
breeze.
I'm thinking of a quote from The Wire, but I can't say it. So,
Most quotes you can't say from The Wire.
when we think about, sorry, go ahead, Paul. Go ahead.
Well, okay, I'm going to clarify now. So I've heard you guys say a lot about, I'm going back a few steps, but talking about screen accuracy and like new designs and new stuff and slug slingers that looked cool, but like, are you saying you want like G1 Hound, but he's a rattlesnake, but it's G1 Hound? Or do you want a rattlesnake that looks like G1 Hound? Like, I'm trying to figure out, like, if you want...
I think it was the former.
A new version of G1, of old characters, forget the G1 term, old characters, like, reimagined, but they're still the same? Or you want, like, all new stuff? Because part of the problem with Transformers is that when they do something new, they have all these trademarks and stuff they have to keep, so they, like, it's very confusing, and it dilutes the brand when, like, you know, even Phil said, that's the first new Optimus Prime in forever. No. That was Fire Convoy, bro. That was not Optimus Prime until they ganked it and brought it over to the United States and just labeled it Optimus Prime. Sure, it was supposed to evoke him, but it was the same as, like, Jinrai or something. Like, Fire Convoy got Jinrai into Power Master Optimus Prime in the United States. And it gets confusing because there's all these different iterations of, like, Ultra Magnus, and some of them are they might as well be called Omega Magnus, you know, like they're not the same character at all, but it's so confusing.
Magnus. Yeah, different dude.
Like God Magnus was, you could tell he was supposed to be like an homage, but he wasn't him.
Why is Inferno an ant and worshiping Megatron?
And that's
not my
Inferno.
So Paul, I know what you're
That's
saying.
awful because it's in the same continuity. It's so bad. I hate it.
My experience of car robots was in the Fox cartoon, in the toy line that came out here at first. Yes, there is more to it. But
you're not one of the real ones.
The vast majority of Transformers fans, that's how they first experienced it. And I think coming back to your previous question, yeah, if you made a Hound, if you made a new cartoon and you had combination of G1 characters and Beast Wars characters, and they all turn into robots, and you throw in like a new version of I'm not saying Windblade herself, but like Windblade, Drift, Lockdown, like give me some new dudes mixed in with all of that. That's kind of what I'm clamoring for. I'm clamoring for something that is gives me some tangential ties to what we've seen before, but a newer twist on it. And I feel like it's been a long time since we've seen that.
Yeah. I guess
it was
I just
Cybertron.
wanted...
Cybertron doesn't even do that. Cybertron is fairly, like, the storylines are different, but the looks are relatively G1 slavish.
Well, I just mean, like, the characters, though, are generally all new. Like, even if they reuse the name, they don't have anything to do with it. But, like,
I'm
after
sorry,
that,
Cybertron versus Cyberverse. I'm sorry, I apologize.
Yeah, but then, like, once you get to animated, there are definitely some new takes, and that's what birthed Bulkhead, you know, who's part of this, the whole reason we're having this conversation.
Yeah.
You know, what if they called him Hound in animated? You know, like that would have fucked up everything that we're talking about right now. We wouldn't even be having the same conversation. And I say that specifically because that's how he got done dirty in the Bayverse. That's clearly supposed to be like Bulkhead.
Yeah,
but he's Hound now.
Yeah, he's just green. No. That's it.
Yeah. I mean, really, he's so far like most of the Bayverse characters, he's so far removed from the name that's given to him that it doesn't make sense. But like that really should. Even Rick has said that was kind of supposed to be Bulkhead. But like those names really matter.
I mean that design that is coming out, I mean, looks a lot like that.
It's
like it looks like the movie essentially like wants to. So
I think we've pieced it together. This Detective Crew Transformer cast.
So
we've solved the
something
mystery.
I'd kind of like to pivot a little bit. Talking about G1 accuracy, is that it annoys me with these where they're trying to tweak things and get things just a little more accurate, or a lot more accurate either way, but then they make designs that are not fun at all because it's accurate, or they have a pile of crap on the back.
Masterpiece.
Because in order to make it accurate or whatever from the front.
Okay, Lucas,
like,
I don't know what you're talking about, Lucas. I don't know what you might be talking about in the slightest. So just, no one knows.
Is that X-Transbots?
Well, one of the things I thought was interesting, like, so the new Fans Toys Soundwave dropped, right? and they've been doing comparison shots between him and the, Masterpiece Soundwave, right? And man, that Masterpiece Soundwave still holds up. Like if you look at those like at least for me, when
It's
I
a
was
great
looking at
toy.
those pictures, I'm like, like the new one, like obviously the Fans Toys looks a little bit better, but I don't know if it looks like whatever price I had to pay and like whatever the pain in the neck transformation that thing's gonna have to be.
It's not that
to
bad.
do that.
Look, I watched a review of it,
Oh,
and
did you? Okay.
it's very similar to the existing Masterpiece Soundwave, as well as the KFC's Blaster.
Mhm.
Same person who designed the Unrustables.
Yep.
But there are some newer parts, like some of the stuff in the middle is a little more complex, but it doesn't look that bad, to be honest. But Masterpiece Soundwave was very complex for its time, and now it's like second nature. And it's,
Right.
it is still a wonderful toy. I think the colors are off for animation accuracy, but that's it. Honestly,
That's
they
not
could
what
slap.
were doing at that time.
Yeah,
I
they
think
could
it
do a
came out now, if
Soundwave
you said
Plus and
Yeah.
not even re-engineer it, and you would be like 95% of what the Fans Toys is doing. Of course, I have
think-
a Fans Toys one that is shipped. It's on the way. And I got Sound Blaster so I could keep that mold, and I'll get rid of my G1 Soundwave. But, yeah.
I think the tapes for Fans Toys are the bigger improvement than
Those are gonna be
Soundwave himself.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, those may
I
cause an
agree
issue
with
for me
you
later.
there.
But this comes back to my point from earlier, is that I'm not saying I think we've crossed a little bit of a line now where we've gotten damn near perfect toy representations of these characters. And so to me it's like, oh, animated Soundwave. Like that was a cool updated design of Soundwave that was all right, had enough similarities but was different, exaggerated some of the proportions. Like I would gladly take something like that. Even like the toys haven't been great of it, but the Cyberverse Soundwave does look pretty neat. But even if you gave me something that was even just a little bit more different, like it's comic books always talks about the idea of like fans want something new, but they also want the old thing. So you need to give the perception of change without really changing things. Like you kind of need that with Transformers too. We need the perception of something different, but still tying it something to what we've had before. So, that's where I think some of these lines that we look back on that are like, 10, 12 years old now, like Prime and animated, I think a lot of people look at that pretty favorably because you got new characters, but you also got old you got new versions of characters you already knew. You got a new RC and like, oh, she's blue instead of pink. And like, people were kind of freaked out about that. And they had like little pink accents on her to tie into it. But now it's just like, that's an awesome character. She looked cool. Like, I'm pissed I'm not getting a more screen accurate version of that toy, of that character now. So
that's 'cause they had some.
You already had it.
yeah.
We not only had half decent fiction for it, we also had really good toys of the show. So it's like they don't have a gap to fill there. And again, I feel that's the case, as you said earlier, from Rid on. It's like, you want show accurate, you got it. Like, yeah, maybe you can redo some Unicron trilogy stuff with a little more articulation and stuff, but it's nothing like the gap of
modern
G1
spy
or Beast.
changers, man.
What?
Modern spy changers, please.
Those are dinky.
Yeah.
I think that the next, if they're gonna branch off from Beast G1, I consider Beast Wars G1 to be honest, like conceptually.
Oh.
If they're gonna branch off from Masterpiece, like they did with the movie stuff, I think the first thing they would do is Prime, because I think there's just like an investment in that brand from the Hasbro team, and it's been 10 plus years.
So I think
that
skip Unicron trilogy.
I do actually. I think they would go to Prime first because I just think that it had there were so many more eyes on Transformers at that time that it has a bigger fan base, and it is
definitely
growing.
has a fan base.
They wouldn't have to work as hard to bring anybody back for Prime. Plus, Prime is readily available to watch right now.
But also, Prime is a relatively small catalog of characters.
True.
Unless you did more.
And yet
the people who grew up with Unicron trilogy, the people my age, if they didn't stay in it like I did or like Surge did, you'll have to bring them back to Masterpiece and to reintroduce them to Transformers with Masterpiece to try and get, Masterpiece hotshot off the ground. With Prime, I feel like a lot of the Prime folks are still around. They didn't go away.
Yeah, and with the Unicron trilogy, other than I could see them doing some Armada stuff, perhaps, but I feel that would be more of a mainline celebration of the brand than a Masterpiece thing.
Because the Armada sideswipe.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, other than Armada, the other two shows were the CG models of the toys.
Yeah.
Like, there's not much to improve there, other than, again, maybe make them bigger, maybe make the articulation better than they were. But generally, what you saw on screen was the toy you got.
And let's be real.
But sometimes it doesn't mean it was always great, and that's why the fans' hobby, Cybertron Prime or Energon Prime is looked at with a lot of excitement and enthusiasm, because all right, yeah, it was screen accurate, but even what was on the screen was like, oh, he needs to go on a diet.
There's another iteration of that will make it awesome.
Yeah.
But if it's third party, I think they are going kind of bigger and more meaty. But if it's mainline, they're going to be smaller than what we got back in the day. Let's be real.
Like,
it's almost assuredly like
Optimus.
Metroplex isn't going to be, because he's got a Titan, which again astounds me. But here we are,
he's 3 times as much as we paid for him then.
Yeah, and he's going to be larger. Right? Isn't he going to be taller than the original toy?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I feel like that's the exception that kind of proves the rule. The rest of the 99% of the time.
Cybertron Optimus and Galaxy Upgrade Optimus from Siege. That's what we're looking at.
Yeah,
but that's different, because I shouldn't say that's different. I feel the downside with that is that was a remold of a character that they obviously made for what was going to be on the TV. Like the Siege Optimus is exactly how he looked like on the cartoon, to the point that even like the little ports were animated into the cartoon.
I think what we're talking about is if they did new versions of Unicron trilogy, most of them are going to be smaller, because toys are smaller now because of prices. I think it's just the reality of it. Like the new Laser Prime that's coming out, it's a liter. It's going to be way smaller than the original Laser Prime.
Right.
I mean,
or the same size.
Because it's more articulated.
It's okay though, because that toy was
fine.
awesome for the time. It's kind of clunky though. Like, just in general, it looks it's very toyetic.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're talking about accuracy and as well to other fictions beyond just G1. It kind of makes me. I think everybody here that's messed with MMC stuff likes MMC as a company, even if you don't buy their stuff. They're generally high quality toys. Their IDW stuff is great, except for Cyclonus, where Cyclonus is generally regarded as like MMC's like hugest miss in that reformatted line. Just because it's so inaccurate, and he's such a main character at the same time. It's like that's like the standout is when they got it wrong, because they didn't stick to that accuracy.
But
cool, it's a new
Cyclonus. The thing
Cyclonus.
is MMC back in the day, like we had a lot of third-party companies that were kind of putting a creative license on, characters rather than, screen accuracy and whatnot. And like MMC did that, where they pumped out a ton of figures with that mold. Like, because what was it? It was Lockdown.
You had Lockdown.
And then you had Cyclonus,
Death's
and then Death's Head.
Who Christian got for me.
Did I?
And like,
I forgot all about Death's Head.
I tried to. I think I couldn't, but I found it for you later.
That one, I have it on my shelf. I thought it was from you.
How much does that even go for nowadays? It has to be expensive.
It's probably the other direction, to be honest. I don't think anybody liked it.
No, well, I'm saying, but it's rare. So, but what I was gonna say though is like they tried to shoehorn that mold into a bunch of different characters, and they just did not, work.
I liked it as Death's Head. I didn't own it, but I liked it. But that's because Death's Head doesn't have a toy in Transformers. It has that one Marvel Universe figure from
and to be
10 years
honest,
ago.
like I actually don't hate that toy, and I actually think it would have been a fine. Like, I think the mold is fine for Cyclonus, but then they went with these weird ass colors and whatnot. I mean, it was just.
And that was a weird time for MMC too, because I think you may be thinking there were more repaints of it than there were, because they did a thing there for like 3 or 4 months where they put out tons of images of coming soon toys that were all remolds of like 1 or 2 figures. And they were just like, look at everything we can make this into. And some people said, oh, you just don't get their humor. But then some of those came out, but most of them didn't. And so it was a really weird time for MMC. And then the Cyclonus did come out, and everybody's like, this doesn't look like anything.
You're talking about like the Drift? There was like a ton of the Drift.
Yeah.
Toy.
They've had a bunch of those. I mean,
era.
they've had a lot of the Drift.
And the Drift one has gotten used a lot. But
right. And also the, the Aero Alpha one. I think
that's still Drift.
That's Drift.
It's
Batman,
Deadlock and Drift.
They had Deadlock and Drift, and they had.
So
I still want
Cinder
Representative Wing Thing.
Wait, but let's come back to a character that we've brought up so many times now, and a version of him that we haven't brought up is the MMC exclusive Bulkhead. The TFCon MMC Bulkhead they did.
That thing flew off the shelves too.
Yeah.
I think if the
badass looking
toy
toy
like that, I think a lot of people would be happier.
Was the MMC Bulkhead popular for the same reason we liked classics in 06? Because it's all you got.
No, because we already had screen accurate bulkheads. Like that was like new just version, of Bulkhead. It looked like Bulkhead. It felt like Bulkhead.
Pulling that character into G1.
Yeah.
It definitely looks better than the Hasbro one. It feels much more like Bulkhead than.
I think even if you took the sorry, let me restart. Bedrock is repainted from Dickamus, I think, which is Roadbuster for MMC.
Language.
I think I know. Even if you pulled the Thrilling 30 Roadbuster forward in time and put a Bulkhead color and head on it and released it for Legacy, I still think that would look better and feel more like it worked than what's coming out in Legacy.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just feel like we're getting a little too slavish to the G1 stuff these days. I enjoy it. I want to see some new versions of G1, but like the Reveal the Shield Sea Spray, I think is an awesome toy.
Yep.
It doesn't look like Sea Spray exactly, but it evokes Sea Spray with a new cool update. Give me stuff like that. Like mix it up a little bit, man. I think they're doing that. So I shouldn't be too angry because I think they're doing that. But these first two efforts that are coming out of RC and Bulkhead feel disappointing.
Shout out to Bludgeon as well from Revenge of the Fallen at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Rob, are you talking? Your mic's off, I think.
Sorry, I was just saying that's one I actually still really like. I mean, I would love an actual new Pretender. I think that would be crazy, but I think only like 5 people would buy it. Now, the 5 of us would love it a lot, but
yeah, if only there was like some Kickstarter that would like give you action figures of Pretender shells that succeeded.
But the figures would have to actually go inside the shell. So otherwise,
Iguanas.
Yeah, and I'm excited. I'm really looking forward to Iguanas.
He's core class, so it's going to be disappointing, but
maybe it's just the Beast Wars guy. That'd be interesting.
It's not.
No. They've shown like a teaser in that big like poster image.
Oh, that's right.
There's a little purple lizard head in there.
I guess I don't fear the change. I had no problem with the Bulkhead. When I saw it, I was like, okay, something different. I didn't see that as a G1 shoehorned thing because I'm not 10 years younger than I am and feel slighted by the old timers,
Watch your mouth, Sonny.
I get called out like this.
It's legacy. It's the War for Cybertron modern current aesthetic that they're continuing, and they're shoehorning him into that.
Right.
Which is not 100% slavish to G1. It is very reminiscent, but they have it's its own continuity. They got a TV show. It's all based around that. That's what it's stuck into to me. Very stratified in my opinion, but so I know I'm in the minority there.
I'm happy with the direction they're going. I just want to see better execution.
Fair.
In general, like the legacy toys did not do much for me. Like the reveals, like I was like they were just more of the same.
I kind of feel like too that Siege was kind of similar, where they kind of shoehorned some of these designs to where it wasn't unique enough for me, but they did it that way so that way they could do easy remolds of characters and whatnot.
Still makes me mad.
Well, ultimately they were awesome toys. Like, you can't deny it. Like, this War for Cybertron line is incredible.
Oh yeah,
so there's a few misses.
The toys are great.
We just didn't need to get the same toys 2 years in a row.
Yeah, you said something there, Phil, that I think points out back to why the animation accuracy or fiction accuracy is the correct answer ultimately. Because you were like, you said you like the idea, you just wish it was executed better. The problem is, I don't think you can concretely define better. And even if you feel that you can personally, you definitely can't broadly define, some sort of reinterpretation in a way that everyone is happy with, because there's no standard to go against when you are creating something new. But what can you create a standard against? Does this look like the fiction? The fiction an appearance in a fiction, generally speaking, equalizes stuff. G1, yeah, sure, scale changes a bit here and there. Some of the animation's really bad. But even with cheaply made 80s cartoons, you can still kind of coalesce around, an 80-90% idea. But if I tell you Bulkhead, but in a G1-ish legacy line, what does that mean? And the answer is not a goddamn thing. It can mean whatever you want it to mean. And so everyone's going to have completely different opinions, where if you're like, oh, we made a new Hot Rod and it looks like he came out of the cartoon. We got one for our Childsterpiece line. We got one for our Masterpiece line. And people can be like, yeah, that looks good, or no, it doesn't. And everybody be like, yeah, you're right, it doesn't, because we have an equal measuring stick. After that, you get into much varied opinions, and business doesn't like risk. So
this is where I would say, if they're going to do something new, I'm not saying I definitely want them to do this, but let's come back to the idea I've been using recurring throughout this episode, is everyone's beasts, all the G1 dudes, all the beasts are all beasts. Get an animation team to design it first, make the toys second. Because when they've done that, when they did that with Prime, when they did that with Animated, we got amazing fucking toys from those. And you had a unique look. And I would say, to a big extent, Cyberverse has done that. And I think that's one of the things I like about Cyberverse, is that it is, it's similar to the animated style, it's similar to G1, but they're kind of unique takes on this. I want to see something like that, and I think, again, that's where Bulkhead and RC suffer, is they were designed as toys by toy designers. I'm not saying toy designers are bad. I'm just saying they were designed by toy designers with a business mindset first, which is make this something that could be something else as well.
Which
feels really weird to say when you're talking about Transformers. Like, make this something that could be something else. It already does that. No, make it be something else that can be something else that can also be something else.
Well, and the funny thing is,
quadruple changer.
Then they are going to be very, very show accurate to the future show that they have been designed for.
But they're going to have to make people love that character, which they haven't done well with the past 3 shows.
You brought up a really good point, though, about having that's a fiction first model, Phil,
right?
Which is
fiction first, yeah.
Which is how Cyberverse was done, because they chose the animation style and then had to build it from there. But I don't think they're going to do that again in the main line until they're going to have to make a big shift. It's going to have to be like, the brand is failing again, like that we keep kind of sort of almost championing.
I mean, it's like when I think about like the last decade plus of Transformers. When I think of the last decade plus of Transformers, the things I enjoy the most are the fiction first stuff. And aside from the movies, like the IDW books, love them. The Cyberverse stuff, even the Kid AIM stuff, like RID, not as much. RID is probably the exception to this, but Rescue Bots, freaking love it. Rescue Bots is great. That was fiction first. The toys look very kind of like the cartoon. Cyberverse I enjoy, animated, Prime, enjoy the heck out of all those. The stuff where they started with the toys and then did a fiction, sometimes I like the toys. I kind of probably do like the toys because they're more G1 focused, but then the fiction sucks. The Machinima and the Netflix stuff, that was crappy fiction.
Right, but that you get what you pay for, though, too. Like the budget for some of the other shows you're talking about was probably a lot higher than, what the Netflix show or Combiner Wars and whatnot. But
I would be surprised.
We don't know that. We don't
Netflix
have any room to speculate that on.
I mean, I don't know. You can just tell.
I don't know. I don't
think so
you
either.
Can. I think
maybe
it's you got to learn how the sausage is made, and I think to know you got to be in it, and none of us are.
Yeah,
I would say, given the voice cast of Rescue Bots, that was probably a pricey show to make.
Well,
we have no idea.
You mentioned it, Phil, but we haven't really
Burton.
talked about the movies, which those are definitely fiction first designs. And you look at the studio series and how that is a crazy successful toy line. That just reinforces Rob's statement that the accuracy is king, and it is. And that's it. That the movies is going to be just like G1, 10, 20 years from now, where like we're still chasing. Those designs are so insane that they can never be perfectly replicated by toy. They're going to be chasing that dragon forever. It's the biggest dragon of all time.
It's just like G1. It cheats
It's
constantly.
literally a dragon that Stanley Tucci drunkenly called up.
Yep.
So, you made a.
I think there's Christian's brain. I just made Christian remember something that he wished didn't exist.
I think there was.
Tried so hard to forget.
Part of the word I think we've blurred the line here unintentionally. But I think it's definitely a difference. There's a difference between an all new character and it's supposed to be an old character to some degree, whether it's more than just a name slapped on, where it's like, well, they're supposed to evoke it a little bit, evoke it in the toy or evoke it in the fiction or both. Like with Cyberverse, there's a lot of new characters in there, and I realized that if those toys were to mainline style, I actually would probably pick up some of them. I actually still have a small shelf of Rid 2 Decepticons because they're new and they're different, and I actually like them. And Rid 2 was before the children's toys were complete crap. They were heading that way. They are definitely lesser than the mainline, although I think that was mainline. I don't know. I don't fucking know. What was coming out at that time?
It
Combiner?
wasn't mainline. Well, there was two concurrent lines at the time, and like those were definitely the for the children's show and whatnot.
But they weren't.
Thunderhoof
they weren't super
sweet.
bad yet. Yeah, like I have all the weird Decepticon ones where they're like some weird animal, like the crab Scorponok looking dude.
Quill Strike.
I have no idea. I'm not gonna watch that
baby.
show.
Biss, yeah.
Yes, that's right.
This is great.
But they were cool. They were neat, and the toys aren't crap. And even though they're very simple, but I like them. So I think if Cyberverse had done that, I probably would actually have a small shelf of some of those. Like even I would make room for that.
Yeah, I mean,
but those are new characters with completely new designs, doing something cool and neat. But the toy also has to not be garbage because I'm not into the fiction.
I think we will see future versions of Thunderhoof, Bisque, maybe Steeljaw, those characters from RID, because that was a post-movie production, and that was when the Decepticons were monsters, they're now monsters. And that was such a cool idea. Just another one of those things like that became part of the lore, and so we could see that going in the future. And with Cyberverse, the new characters are cool, like Shadow Striker, like the pieced together Frankenstein female Decepticon. That's a cool character.
Yeah,
like we got to see her again. Probably McAdam even.
She's a movie character. Fun fact.
What?
They brought her forward from 2009 Revenge of the Fallen toy line.
What?
Yeah.
Does her bio on the back of the card say that?
Yes.
Otherwise, it's oh, damn.
No, but they gave her a cool story in the Cyberverse show. Like the reason she's a Frankenstein sort of Decepticon is like the Autobots keep blowing her up, and she keeps getting repaired, and like that's why she hates the Autobots so much. Like she's has like
a waspinator.
reason to. Yeah, but Waspinator, but like that has like memory of being blown up. That's not a slapstick. And yeah, McAdams is pretty, had been mentioned before. We'd never seen him before, and they do some really cool things with McAdams.
Too bad they didn't do a cool way to release a toy of him.
I like new characters, and I like it when they don't make new characters and put old names on them just because they have to, and just
it's hard to make an attachment. Like Bulkhead works because they didn't, as you said earlier, because they didn't call him Hound. He's Bulkhead, and we can talk about Bulkhead, and we know who we're talking about
because he's Patrick Starfish.
Well, because then you have to start prefixing the names. It's in animated he's Prowl, but no, he's animated Prowl now. That's not his real name. It's fucking Prowl. But
it's a totally different character. It's just a name slapped on.
Yeah, and it's just that
Beast
I
Wars
can only
Inferno,
take that.
G1 Inferno.
By the time I'm 70, I probably will explode because I can't discern the different things anymore, and the wiki will now be implanted in my head. Peter,
you think you'll last that long?
I don't know.
Yeah.
But I mean, you mentioned those Beast G1 guys. What if they just flipped the script and all the Beast guys were vehicles? That would be a very interesting.
Okay, so
Ravage and alternators.
Aside on that with pre-Beast Wars, like what they look like before they went to the Beast Wars, that just does not do it for me at all.
Really?
Like, nope, don't like it. Do not care for it.
Oh man, I think that's
good.
Cool.
You just saved yourself thousands of dollars in old box sets.
Thousands of dollars with that.
I think that topic came up last week in terms of are you going to get those molds?
No.
Those are your Cybertron molds, dog. You got to get that.
I know. We'll see.
You can't break your rules.
I'd like to see
judging you.
Cognitive dissonance.
I'd like to see what it looks like again. If it's executed poorly, no one wants it. If it's executed well, then
But what does that mean? Nothing, because it's random new stuff.
So
it's just if you like it or not.
Have we pretty much hit on that we all want to see unique takes, but we don't have the space or budget for those unique takes? So we're saying it like, go ahead and come out with that stuff, but we are probably not going to buy it. We'll leave that to Anna.
Yeah, I'll be in. Like I said, I want unique takes as long as they're not close to what we already have.
I wish Nick was here to quote the Simpsons episode. I can't remember it, where they do it's like one of those, what do you call it, where they poll the customers and they hit what they like, yes or no, where they're in a room together or whatever, they're pitching a product to them. I can't think of the word. But they're like, wait, so you want something? What? Yeah, focus group. And the Simpsons scene is they're like, wait, so you want something that is what you already know, but is also completely different? And all the kids are like, oh yeah, that's it. And then there's.
But that's everything with so many of these brands. So many of these brands that have been around now for half a century in some cases, as you look at Marvel and DC. Like almost a century. Like you're knocking on the door, and you're not that far away for a century for like Superman and Batman. You're closer to a century than half century for those characters.
His underwear's not on the outside anymore. # not my Superman.
Yeah. If that's the only thing you're reading about Superman these days, you're not venturing too far.
Not these days, but I have read those arguments. People serious about the underwear not being on the outside anymore is an affront.
I actually have
an endemic of why everything is failing with comics.
So I have a pair of red Superman underwear that I got at a convention panel because DC was promoting that the underwear is back on the outside.
Yeah, that's a good story. That's what makes a character likable or not.
But it's just like, you hear some of these writers for Marvel and DC and the editors of the companies, and it's just like, it's all about perception of change. And that's where we're at with Transformers, is about perception of change. Optimus Prime's always going to kind of have to have that physique, have that sort of look, and how much you change that is maybe he's not a truck, or maybe he's not a truck with the flat front. People got pissed about that. People were super pissed
truck,
that it wasn't
monkey.
the right kind of semi truck for the Bayverse movies. Yeah. So it's about change, but not real change, and it's a tough tightrope to walk. I'm glad I'm just sitting here yelling about it into an iPad versus actually being paid to come up with that stuff. But you know, again, I'm swinging the pendulum to saying I want a little bit more change than giving the same thing over and over again.
I think the grass is always greener on the other side, you know, and this is we've talked before. This is a pay-to-play hobby. This is literally nothing but spending money. You know, like this isn't a very interactive hobby in a lot of ways. And so all you really got to do is making sure where we're throwing our money at keeps interesting us. And we've all expressed fatigue to, you know, they launch a new line every year or two. So what is the first thing you do? Optimus Prime, Megatron, Starscream, Bumblebee. And yeah, there's some exceptions to this, but it's kind of like that same cast of characters again and again and again. I think everyone has hit some fatigue now to where it's like we're ready for something new like we used to get, just because we just literally, I think, want to change to some degree. And you know what happened after that? It'd be like, man, I wish they'd use some of this new engineering, you know, 5 years from now when we're talking about like to give a new Optimus Prime toy because they haven't done a good one in a while. You know, like we'll always want what we're not getting. But they've definitely.
And honestly, that's what the comic books. But that's what the comic books do so well. It's like, oh, we're gonna kill Superman and have 4 new Supermans, and it's new, it's different, and oh, guess what? We just brought Superman back. Here's a new #1. Everyone rush to the stores and buy it. Like, oh, we're gonna break Batman's back, and this guy is gonna be Batman with all these razors and spikes, and oh, we're gonna bring Batman back, and you know, again, they started doing that in the '90s, and they still do that ad nauseum now. And the reason why they so well. What's that?
And comics are doing so well, which is funny because how good the movies are. Comic books aren't doing good. Comic books are in trouble.
Comic books are doing well. It depends. Not every comic book, but you've got a lot of comic books that are making some people rich.
Every time I've heard anybody talk about the industry, they're talking about how in trouble the actual like comic books themselves are, and how everything's a mess.
So that's a whole nother topic, and again, Nick is probably a better subject matter expert on that than any of us.
Yeah.
I don't know, what does he like, own a comic book store or something, whatever, who cares.
At TFCon I was talking to Slade a lot when I was waiting on Serg to get in, and Slade works with comic book stores and like shipping. He was telling me some stuff. It was pretty interesting, but yeah, different topic.
Well, the last year has been like so maybe the last 18 months is
that's
a different
true.
Story.
Pandemic fucked everything.
Yeah.
But I think the other thing too is that everything is so much more niche now than like what it was before. So like before you would expect to sell X number of toys or X number of comic books or X number of whatever, and that number is much smaller, but then like it's much wider. And so you have like, before you might have gotten one Optimus Prime that sells, 1 million units, and now it's like we get an Optimus Prime every 6 months and it sells whatever number of units. So
I remember Simon Furman has said many years back, he's like, Transformers G2 comic book was canceled because it wasn't selling enough. And he's like, today's numbers, and this was probably 10 years ago or more when he said this, he's like, in today's number, it would be a runaway success, but it's just, it's all relative to how other things do at the time. The time it was shitty numbers. Today it would be the best selling comic ever, or whatever.
It's
just funny.
The internet diversified everything. Back in the day, you had a toy store aisle, like a whole aisle of Transformers, a whole aisle of G.I. Joe, and it was like filled to the brim. You see those photos and stuff.
Yeah. And they got like 10 toys, 20 toys for the year, and that's it. And they're out there on the shelf all year long. As you see it like 6 months, and you're like, Mommy, I want that in 6 months for Christmas. And they can actually come and buy it 5 months later, and because it's still on the shelf, because it's still stocked.
Well, and
things are so
nine out of 10 kids had seen those toys in the commercial of all commercials, which was the cartoon. Every Saturday. If you have a cartoon now, it's on YouTube, and you're lucky. Someone has to literally find it, search for it, be told to go look for it.
And that's why I'm the best parent in this group, because I showed my son that. Rob, what's your daughter doing? Minecraft? Lucas, your kids are playing Fortnite? How dare you? How dare you?
So you forced your children into your likes and dislikes?
And it sucks some days. Like, it's better now that my son likes his own things of like Ninjago. But like when my son was like, I like Transformers because my dad watches Transformers, and I like watching Transformers with my dad. I'm going to ask him every single thing about Transformers for as long as I'm awake. And That hurt my head so much.
And now you're on a podcast.
Yeah.
You can explain it to all of us.
Wait,
So,
what?
yeah, I mean, Enoch brings up a good point, too, about just that, like, there's a fine line between, the people like us that have been collecting forever and, the new people, because they're always attracting new people and they have to have those main characters. And so, out there on the shelf. And so that's the thing that's really hard with all of this.
I think there's a huge influx of new people since in the past 18 months. Yeah. Huge influx. The industry hasn't been able to respond to it yet.
Yeah, but they're not true fans, okay? Those are Johnny-come-latelys, happy sunny day fans that
they got money, bro.
But they only have money for like 2 years, and then they're out. They're surging it up on the boards they threw all their toys on their bed and they took a picture and they're like, "Hey, this stuff's for sale. PM me for price," and that's all they'll ever do.
What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that?
Literally everything.
No, it's great. I mean, someone gets a deal and someone's, someone loses. It's the dude taking the picture on the bed. No, everyone that buys the stuff does good.
No, everybody that sends him money never gets a toy because he doesn't know how to ship anything.
Well, that's,
yeah,
you're right about that.
And they probably don't even include instructions, and they probably will get into a big internet fight if you just ask if they're even going to have the instructions. That's how that's going to go.
Throw it in a bubble mailer. Yeah, but see, that's why you
get a hotel room at TFCon, try to sell it out of the room.
That's why you have to organize your instructions so that.
What kind of psychopath doesn't organize their instructions?
I know, right?
For real.
Oh, jeez.
She hasn't replied in a while, so I don't know if she's still listening.
Anyway,
she hasn't posted anything on the chat.
So book club this week is going to be RID 54 and 55. That is going to be Sunday night at 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 Central on the TF Talk Discord. So join them with discussing that.
Show's over. Pack it up. Lucas is hawking the book club.
Yep. Oh, jeez.
I mean, we were like an hour 20 minutes.
You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
And I answered the question in like the first 30 seconds of actually talking about the topic. So.
This is the extended thing where we're just, BSing and whatnot. But
I didn't even get to put in my last 5 cents.
Please do.
What's your last 5 cents, Paul?
I think they need to make something new. They need to focus on new characters instead of 1 or 2 per series. They need something new. Like maybe it's Optimus Prime, like they always is, with a new crew of completely new guys. All new designs, new characterizations. Same thing with the bad guys. Maybe it's a new villain. Maybe you reference some of the old guys. Like maybe they come in for an episode or 2. They did some of that, in RID and stuff.
What they should do a some fiction where they take one of the leaders and they have him do a spaceship, and they take a bunch of quirky characters that get to go on that spaceship and have
spaceship?
Space adventures. That would be great.
They could call it More Than Meets the Eye or something.
Yeah, I think that would be great.
Profound Darkness
on the nose.
Yeah, but those those weren't new characters. There were a few, but they were still a bunch of they were the ragtags and stuff.
I mean, as much as sometimes we bitch about we don't want change, but we also want change. I think, Truck Not Monkey was a big, huge deal in its day, but Beast Wars is extremely well regarded now. And let's look at the new, who I consider kind of new G1 characters. Windblade and Drift. Drift in particular was really forced down our throats at the beginning, but I like Drift now. It took some time.
Drift was Poochie. Yeah,
Drift was 100% Poochie. But I thought Windblade was good from the get-go, and I've always liked Windblade. And now, Bulkhead and Lockdown from Animated are, I'm happy to see those characters anywhere except whatever the movie Bayverse did to any of them. But
I'd love to see a version of Animated Prowl pop up somewhere again.
Yeah.
Yep.
We have to find a new name for him, though, which is the problem, as Paul brought up.
Yeah.
But what if I want Eagle Prowl? Even though I know Eagle Prowl is technically G1 Prowl, but shut up. Or Owl Prowl, not Eagle.
You mean Skywarp?
No, I meant Owl Prowl.
Owl Prowl.
Owl. I just got that.
Okay.
Owl. Oh my God. in how many years it just clicked.
It's been like 25 years, man.
Yeah. But
We need more of that stuff. We need new.
how about a cartoon that starts with Optimus dying? Like seriously, like it's sometime in the future. Optimus Prime is beyond geriatric. Optimus Prime wasn't dead in that. I mean, Optimus Prime led animated. It's a new young Optimus
He
Prime.
dies in the first episode. Well,
I haven't watched
you
it.
include the movie as the first episode, but yeah.
Yeah, he gets better real soon.
That
But
was
I mean,
interesting.
that literally kills him off, and that way it feels like a switch over to. It's still kind of the thing and love, but it's a branching off point to how do they find their place? They'd give a chance to do a new story. It's like
in this
a new Beast Wars would be
RID2
interesting,
kind
but I
of
don't
did
think they
that.
can.
RID2 did that a bit with Bumblebee being in charge and him trying to figure out a way to be a leader.
Was
But then they just brought Optimus back.
They did.
That was worse.
One
Yeah.
cool thing about Armada that is somewhat overlooked is they like at the first episode or something, they had these like flashback. They're like watching something on a screen, and they showed like scenes from G1, almost.
No,
like
that
it
was animated.
No, it was Armada, and they
Well,
they had like
Armada
characters
has
in the
the
background and
character
stuff.
models. Yeah.
Yeah, and you are right, Phil. They did show that. Maybe I'm mixing up my stories, but
You are, but
it
Go
just
on.
was interesting how they, like, I think Beachcombers in the background running around Cybertron and stuff in Armada, but then it's just so confusing. Like, why did that have to be named Optimus Prime? He could have been like something else Prime, and it would have been just fine.
Does
It
that
could have
get
been
back
called
to just-
Armada Prime.
Does that just get back to the trademark thing and them needing to keep it?
Yeah,
Tag
they
alive.
have to. But I mean, they could show those characters in flashbacks, I guess, like something like that. But again, I just want like a new continuity.
I mean, I will say, I think it would be great if they could do a show where they integrated, the toys, and they had them on Cyberverse, and then then they went into space and then integrated Beast Wars. Like, that would be a really cool show, I think, and it's too bad they didn't do that.
Cheetor was in Cyberverse.
Yes.
No, I
Oh,
was
he's
just
a
talking
new
because
toy.
Catherine was saying that Netflix Earthrise gave us Adventures in Space, and it was like I just chose to.
I
Did it though? They were barely in space, and whatever they did wasn't.
Yeah, I don't think it
was a
like
slow
their
chat.
eternal suffering. I don't think you categorize it as an adventure.
Yeah, no, well, and
They're
they also
slow
gave
walking
on
through the cosmos.
They also gave us, the G1 characters on Cybertron and, Beast Wars and all that, but I don't feel like it was what most of us wanted.
I think it's just hard to do this stuff. This brand is complex.
There's a lot of money in it. Do you want to be the one that takes the risk doing something completely new that does a new Beast Wars? We got Beast Wars because the brand was dead.
Right. It's going to be a while till they can do that.
Right.
It may never happen.
Oh, we're
It may
about to
never
get
happen.
Rise of the Best. It's totally going to
There you go.
have 4 Beast characters in
Rise
the
of
last
the-
5 minutes.
Rise of the worst. I mean, I'm hoping that tanks
The
so
best.
hard.
I still am the optimist that it might be good. I don't know.
It's got
Hey,
Ron
I'm happy to be wrong.
Well, we
It
got to
might be
see that movie
acceptable.
together. Phil.
Bumblebee was good. This could be fine. We'll see.
I'm right there with you, Christian.
Well,
It
does
The
could
anyone
be.
else
stink
have
of
any
Michael
other
Bay
final
is still
thoughts,
there,
or-
but it's not. We could overpower with some Axe body spray.
Oh man, he got a private tour of Machu Picchu, man. He's in it to win it.
Might as well just go ahead and burn that place to the ground.
You can already smell Michael Bay on this film. Smell of money. Put that hat back on, Christian, before we leave. I need to see it.
All right.
Why do you like this hat so much?
Thank you guys for joining me tonight, and thank you to everyone in the chat. Thanks to Catherine. Thanks to Enots, Zaldron. Thanks to Anna stopping by earlier. Let's see. Big Daddy Reviews was there earlier as well. Ryan, Daniel.
Another Ryan.
There's a couple Ryans that were in the chat. I think if I missed.
Hey,
any
shout out
names.
to no Nazi surge in
Oh
the
God! Don't
the
say
chat
you
room.
might. You
might
might
summon.
might
Well,
call
they're
him.
too busy being in my daughter's Minecraft games,
Oh,
so
and
they
then
couldn't make the chat.
Ron as well. So
Here's an alternate
house.
take on Optimus Prime.
Sure,
That's a
maybe
cool
show
And
it.
I
Diet
kind of like it.
I like it. I wish it was less
But he's super expensive.
Yeah, I wish it was less expensive.
It's a Diaclone reboot, right?
Yeah.
It's such a cool line, but space and money.
Yeah.
So expensive.
Yeah.
And
I
no
think that's-
fiction.
I think that's kind of the end of the day. It's like, there's a lot of cool stuff. If only there was
Yeah.
more space and money.
It's a good time to be a collector. I think we can all agree on that. Yeah, we can always think of what we want different, that we wish it was like the old days again, just to get a change. But I don't know. All in all, it's a pretty awesome time to be in, no matter what your nerd hobby is. It's bonkers right now.
That is true.
Especially if you're into tough guy hardcore.
There you go.
Straight
All right.
edge.
Thanks, guys. And we will see you next week.
Christian needs to go to a Hatebreed show right after this.
I
Don't
hate
lose your-
Hatebreed.
Don't lose